Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach about parenting, child development, family communication all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how we've gone from hero culture to hollowed out culture with our young people. In this video, I'm going to be talking about hero culture, what it used to look like, what it looks like now, and the hollowed out culture that so many of our young people are getting devastated by, and what we can maybe do to make some changes for them, even though they are living in a time that doesn't support the right kind of hero culture anymore. From the time I was in grade school all the way through adolescence, the talk was about how everyone could do anything they put their minds to. This was the narrative that ruled the day. Didn't matter if you were a girl or a boy, you could play any sport you wanted. Didn't matter if you were a girl or a boy, you could learn any skill or art that you wanted. Nobody was held back from anything. It's interesting to me to look at how many boxes we've put people in our modern culture. In fact, how many people are saying that boxes are the solution to no boxes. It's just crazy. It doesn't even make logical sense to me. But as I look at my own upbringing, I recognize that there were some principles, some ideas behind this upbringing that were really propelling everyone to just expand their horizons, to accept other people, and to allow everyone to develop in the best way possible for them. What was happening at that time? Well, there was a culture. It was a hero culture, which is very different than today's idol culture. So people would definitely say we still have a hero culture, but it is an idol culture. It's different, which means that instead of following heroes and the principles that make a hero, instead we follow fame and idols. In fact, the young people nowadays are getting really caught up in fame. We're going to be talking about that and what that is doing to them. But first, let's analyze what a true hero culture looks like. So about every 80 to 100 years, there is an archetype or generation of people that ends up being termed a hero generation. This is according to a book called The Fourth Turning by Strauss and Howe. Very insightful book. And in this book, they talk about how the last hero generation that has reached full adulthood and has gone through the whole processes of a life was the GI generation from World War II. So what made these young GIs, these 15-year-olds, pretend that they were a different age just so that they could sign up for the military and go and fight in the war? What was it? They had such a conviction. They wanted to help their country. They wanted to stand up for what was right and fight against what was wrong in the world. They wanted to make a difference in the world. They wanted to be a hero in a time of international struggle and turmoil. They saw themselves as capable of being a type of hero. Now, did some of them struggle? Did some of them end up maybe not fulfilling that hero dream like they wanted to? Of course, that's just life. It happens, but they had the hopes that they would do something good for the world. And it was their parents who had been raised during a time of moral decline during the flapping 20s and the early turn of the century, the 1900s, where so many things were changing culturally and morally for the society, who had trained their children that there's right and wrong, good and bad, true and false, and we stand for what is right, good, and true. And you have a moral obligation to do something about it if innocent people are getting hurt and if there's corruption. That was part of their training as becoming this generation. They were more protected than any other generation that had happened before them within the last 100 years or so before. And it's very interesting. Because they had been a little bit more sheltered by their parents, because their parents had been through a moral decline where people were burning bras and all kinds of things, then the children recognized when something was bad and they were ready to do something about it. They inserted themselves in the gap. That is what a hero does. So when a person sees themselves as a hero, then they say, here is the problem. Here is the solution. I'm going to insert myself in the middle and help people get from problem to solution so that we can overcome this situation. That's what a hero does. And they just naturally do it. They feel obligated, like they have a duty to do it to help other people around them. Heroes are formed by looking up to other heroes, people who live by principle and by virtue. Many, many people were named at that time after presidents of the United States that their parents looked up to, or named after religious leaders. This was a common practice for them to even have a namesake that they would look up to, and obviously being named after family members was a big important thing too. In fact, that's one reason that people have always named their children after family members, and that's because they want their children to have someone to look up to. The children of the early 1900s, they wanted to be their parents. They wanted to dress like their parents, listen to the same music as their parents, speak in appropriate ways and grown-up mature ways like their parents. We didn't start getting the really rebellious teenager phase, or even the word teenager. We didn't get that until after World War II. So interesting, right? So they saw the heroes that were around them, they wanted to be like them, and they stepped up to the cause. Let's look at our young people today. What do they have to live up to? Everybody's caught up in digital devices. Are there heroes anymore? And if there are heroes, can they see them? Are any of those heroes getting any time on YouTube? Let's answer those questions. Let's explore that and see what we can do to help our children develop a hero type of a phase when in reality most people are just living hollowed out lives right now. I'm going to talk about hollowed out culture and what we can do to help our children have more of a hero experience in their lives. But before I do, click that subscribe button. There are so many great videos that happen on this channel that you are not going to want to miss, that will help you and your children develop a sense of identity, purpose, and some good communication skills that can really take your relationships to the next level. So click on that subscribe button now. So what are the young people experiencing today? It's an idol culture. It's revolving around fame, and it ends up becoming very hollowed out. They feel oftentimes lost, like they're just drifting. In fact, they feel like that's the normal, and if you're not just drifting, something might be wrong with you. This is a very interesting component to the generation of young people right now. Strauss and Howe have made the conclusion that they think that the group of young people who were born in the 1990s, early 2000s perhaps, are going to be the hero generation that becomes the next hero generation to fight the conflicts, just to mirror the hero generation that was the GI generation. So we've got some of the millennial generation and this Gen Z, or what is being called sometimes the Zoomer generation of people that technically should be the next hero generation. That's our older children right now, if you're my age. And as we're looking around at the conflict, there certainly are no shortages of conflicts or causes that people could jump onto. And we are seeing a lot of battle lines being drawn politically, socially, and we're wondering, how is this going to play out with our children? The battle that's happening right now is not the same type of battle that happened in World War II. The battle that's going on right now is a battle for ideologies. It's a battle for their minds, for their time, for their attention. It's a battle for a lot of power that's happening internally in the hearts of each individual person. Now, whether there will be another big battle or not, which usually does happen at the time of a hero generation, as far as like conflict that goes, whether it's a civil battle or whether it's an international battle, remains to be seen. But we do know that there are battle lines that are being drawn and battles that are happening, at least civilly, in governments all over the world right now related to health things and race things and all kinds of stuff that our children are dealing with at this particular time. Here we have this group of people. Are they ready? We have to ask ourselves to be a hero. Are they looking up to their parents? Do they have heroes that they're following, or are they following idols? Are they following fame? Well, the answer is in our hollowed out culture, and I'm taking that term from the book Hollowed Out by Jeremy Allen. He says that we live in a hollowed out culture. It's a time when the young people, it's like they're there, but they're not there. They're not progressing and doing the things that they should be. It's like they're stuck. They're stuck in their own heads. They're stuck in their progression. They're not launching properly. There's a lot of things that are happening. And he explained actually in his book Hollowed Out that the young people are caught up in a fame-esque culture. Not just fame, but fame-esque. It's like who can appear to be famous, who can say that they're famous, that they've done all these things, but never have to prove it, never have to show it. So they may talk big on YouTube or, their Instagram or whatever about all the cool things they've done, but no one ever actually sees them do those cool things. There's no substance there. So people from my generation and the generations before, if you became famous, it's because there was a reason that you had notoriety. You knew stuff, you did stuff, you added something to the world that people needed. It wasn't about what you looked like or what you said you did or how you carry yourself in your cocky air so that you look so cool or the clothes you wear. It wasn't about any of those things. It wasn't about necessarily if you could make somebody laugh or pay attention to you. It was about if you contributed in a really significant way to the world, then you would be considered famous. So we have this fame-esque culture where our young people truly are getting lost. There are other aspects of the culture that are making the young people struggle and causing them to be hollowed out. And that is that they are getting lost in devices and in the online world to the point that they're not developing their social skills. Did you know that there are not a lot of young people that are engaging in sex right now? Now, some people might say that's actually a really good thing, and I agree. I don't want young people engaging in, premarital or whatever sex, but they're not even desiring it at all, which is not normal for adolescents. And that's a sign of adolescents not wanting to take a step forward. They don't want to mature. They don't trust themselves with relationships or romance. They don't even want to try it out because it seems too risky for them. So this is another component to a hollowed out culture. It stops people from progressing because they question everything they do. They over question everything they do. And if we're looking at the amounts of anxiety, depression, and emotional struggles, that are definitely evidenced by the increase in suicide rates. It's not like we're just bringing this up and like, oh, well, we had the same problems before. We're just now talking about them. No, the suicide rates are through the roof. That actually proves that the mental health problems are also through the roof. And clearly we're presenting the wrong solutions to solve our problems, right? If self-harm is now going to be on the rise, which it absolutely is and has been for quite some time. We have people struggling with who they are, struggling with their connections to family. They're not having good relationships or bonding or talk times with their family. These are all indicators of this hollowed out generation or hollowed out culture and some of the things that they are dealing with. So what in the world do? We have to have a way to reach them, and hopefully even some young people see this and say, you know what, is that something that's inflicting me? How am I dealing with that part of my culture? Who am I believing? Who am I looking up to? Do I have a hero? Because I think we can go back to that hero generation, that hero culture, and we can find some solutions there. So what does the hero generation show us, or show the hollowed out generation, that can really give them some things to hold on to? So number one, the hero generation was rock solid in faith. They loved God, okay? Now I know that there's a lot of different denominations out there, but even if all the people who were raised to love God just became dedicated in their own faith. That would make a huge difference. That is what happened with the hero generation. When they all went to war, they took little Bibles with them. They took pictures of Jesus. They took pictures also of their family. So we need to be nurturing morality and a love of a higher power with our children. That gives them security, actually. Now, I know many parents are thinking, okay, they don't want that. They don't want any of it. How do you give that to them when that's the last thing that they want? They've been turned off to that. It's true. And it's hard to expose all the fallacies, especially when they believe everything that's on social media. They assume that since real people are talking on there, that everything that's said must be authentic and true. And sadly, they are really getting tricked by that. They don't know how to find the lines of logic in things, and that's because they're not learning their history. So the more history that we can teach the young people, whether it's your family history or the history of your nation, the history of the world, the better. They need to see patterns that happen in history. They need to see you go back to history for an example, not just for justification, but for actual examples of how things went wrong and how things went right, so that there can be real proofs there. So let's talk to our children about the history. Let's discuss the things that are going on now from a moral standpoint, not necessarily religious standpoint, but from moral. What is true and false? What is right and wrong? What is good and bad? What is the context of this? How do we know? Let's start doing some more deep digging ourselves. If we are lazy, how can we expect for them not to be? We've got to definitely step it up as adults so that we can set the example that the young people need, so that they have someone they can look up to. Years ago, I was teaching a class, and this group of youth, it was actually a homeschool group, had my daughter in it. And I said to them, you guys, it's so important that you understand what's right and wrong, good and bad, and true and false, and you learn how to discern those things for your life. I said, just think, if there's an election happening and you need to vote for a certain candidate, how are you going to know which is really the right candidate? With all the hype and messaging and everything else, it can be very difficult for a person to determine who it is that really is the best person, or if there even is one at all in any of the elections. So what are you going to do? And my daughter raises her hand and I call on her and she speaks up and she said, I would call my mom and ask her. And when she said that, I thought, have I taught her how to discern? Or have I taught her who she can go to? Interesting. Obviously, at the time she was 14 years old, her prefrontal cortex wasn't fully developed. She hadn't researched elections or anything like that. So from what she knew right there, she said, I would call my parents. I would call my parents and I would talk to them about it. She would go to someone to help her look for what she didn't know. Someone who she knew did the research. That meant that she looked up to me. I'm going to get a little choked up here. But my daughter Paige, who hopes to take over one day, all of this stuff that I'm doing, she wants to be me, a mom like me. She wants to raise her family the way that I did. She wants them to have the security growing up that she did. She has a hero, and it's me. If we want our children to have heroes instead of idols, we've got to be heroes. We've got to live by principle. Our practices, our behaviors have got to match our principles. We can't make excuses and be lazy. We've got to do the hard work ourselves. We can make those changes right now. And it's never too late for them to learn. Even Paige, who's 23, or Quinn, my oldest, who's 25, or any of my foster children who are older than them, they see who I am and what I've become. Even if things don't go perfectly in their lives, even if they didn't learn the lesson before, they know, even as adults, what it looks like to live a life of purpose and meaning and to put your priorities straight. Because that's what I have labored to do. That doesn't mean I'm perfect, but that's been my focus. We don't have to be perfect for our children. We need to be wise for our children. And that's going to make all the difference. And part of that is to teach them what they need skills-wise to develop wisdom for themselves as well. And that's where we get to self-government learning. So I teach all about self-government. And since you have stayed to the end of this video, I want to give you a special gift. That gift is my Calm Parenting Toolkit. My Calm Parenting Toolkit will give you key tools that you need to be calm in your corrections and your connections and interactions with your children so that you will be wise. You will be that voice of wisdom that they need. If you're out of control, that says that you're a manipulator. But if you're calm and you have good communication skills, that actually says you're wise without you ever having to say it. And that was one of my biggest focuses for myself as my children were being raised. In the description below this video, there is a link to the Calm Parenting Toolkit. If you click it, if you go to teachselfgov.com/toolkit, you will get the Calm Parenting Toolkit for free. Click on the link now. Get your relationship on the calm track, on the self-govern track, so that you can be the hero that your children need. I'll see you there.